Hang on a minute, you might be thinking to yourself, where is Lee and Jeremy? Well, we're here, well I'm here, but we're gonna just do this as a little voiceover. No intro and outro in this piece, but please do stick around to the very end because you'll see these finished pieces on the wall. So, what have I been doing? Up until now, all of my blobs have always been multiple blobs on a bigger canvas. So like, I've done 18 by 24s and I've done 15 by 30s. And Jeremy was playing around with blobs in the studio and had these smaller wooden tiles. These are 8 by 8 inch wooden tiles. And I thought to myself, well, it would be really fun just to do one huge blob on each of these tiles and see what kind of fun composition I can get. So that's exactly what I did. You can see that beautiful resin job on here. This is Cappuccino. It's one of the TLP colors, which you can get from fluid-art.co. Cappuccino, mix that with resin, and it was art resin I used this time, and then poured that onto the square 8 by 8 inch tiles. Let it dry, and that's what I'm blobbing on. So the blob paints in this case are all Arteza pearls. So we've got pearl white, we've got graphite, we've got gold, and I've got copper. And these are all Arteza metallics, not pearls, metallics. And they are mixed to my normal, traditional pouring recipe for a blob, which is 50% Mod Podge, 25% paint, and 25% Liquitex gloss varnish. Not gloss medium, but gloss varnish. And that will give you this consistency that you can see that kind of keeps the actual blob in almost like what you would I would call an American pancake kind of thickness. There's definitely a thickness to it. It is mounding, but there is still a little bit of spread, a little bit of give as you squeeze this out of the bottle. Now what you can see me doing here is torching the bubbles as I go. You can absolutely torch the bubble. Even though there's varnish in this recipe, you can absolutely torch, but try not to put the flame on the paint, and try not to keep the flame in one place for too long, otherwise you will kind of burn it. You'll form a skin, it will crackle, and you could potentially spoil your blob. So here all I'm doing is using those 4 colours one at a time on each of these square tiles, and then I'm going to alternate the colours and see how many kind of blob layers I can get up to. For anyone that's interested, I actually finish at about, I think it's 8. I do 8 layers, so 2 of each of the colours on these square tiles. I'll talk through some tips and tricks if this is your first time seeing a blob as we go through this. Just know that the bubbles are impossible to avoid, so you will get bubbles in your blobs and you'll have to keep torching this kind of as you let it sit. But you'll think to yourself, these colours don't look like metallics, what's going on? Well, within just 24 hours of this drying, these colours will look like this, which is the true metallic colour. Now that's graphite, that's gold, that's copper, and that's pearl white, metallic white, and this is just 24 hours later. And oh, I'm sorry, I apologise, it's not 24 hours later. Because these were hubcap sized blobs, I actually left these for 3 days. So the first layer I left for 3 days, the second layer I left for 2 days, and then everything else after that was just 24 hours. But these blobs will dry true to colour, just the colour that you see within your tube. And the reason is because everything you're mixing your acrylic paints with will dry clear. The gloss varnish will dry clear and the Mod Podge will dry clear. So when you squeeze it, when you mix it, it will look milky. But as it dries overnight, it'll turn back to the true colour. So sit back and enjoy some fun music, and I'll be in and out over the course of this episode to give you some hints and tips. We'll talk about kind of squeezing and how you try and get a blob that is the same diameter as you want it to be. We'll talk about that as we go through the video, but sit back and watch a couple of layers. One thing I want to say here is, and these are the biggest blobs I've ever done so far, but I severely underestimated the spread of the blob. I thought that these were going to spread out a heck of a lot more. So from that first layer to that second layer, there were some here that I wasn't particularly happy about once they dried. The top left, as you guys can see it, the white to the graphite, for example, there wasn't enough graphite on that second blob. And even the gold to the copper looked a little kind of skinny in that second blob too. Someone asked me, how do you know? How do you know when to stop squeezing out the paint? And the honest answer is, you just have to practice and do it a lot to kind of understand how much it spreads. And all of my blobs so far have been about 2 or 3 inches in diameter. These ones are clearly nearly 7 inches wide, and I just underestimated just how much this paint was gonna and wasn't gonna move. As I kind of went up the blob, you'll see I definitely get better at it, but it is really just trial and error. It's just practice. You'll get to kind of understand how much the paint will move as it sits and dries from one layer to the next. Another tip for you, so as you can see, lots of torching, but another tip for you is, if you can see when I pour out my colours from the squeeze tubes, you'll see me always squeeze out in the top right there on a piece of paper towel a little bit of the paint. Just want to make sure that there's no huge air bubbles caught in that nozzle, but I'm also just making sure that it's still the right consistency, because as these sit, sometimes they'll kind of change consistencies too. And I'm keeping the nozzle inside the paint. If you can see there, as I'm squeezing it out, I'm keeping the nozzle inside the paint. That's something I do in particularly with metallics and pearl colours. Otherwise, you tend to get kind of different variations. It's almost like tree rings as it dries overnight. So I keep my nozzle inside the paint when I'm squeezing it out. And here's almost the 3rd layer done. I've now done one pass of all of the colours on these square tiles, so I'm gonna just keep going. I was hoping to get like 12, 15 layers on here, but because that second layer was quite so skinny, I didn't manage to do it. I only got up to 8 layers, but it was still a lot of fun. And as you can see, I'm just alternating the colours. So this one goes copper, white, graphite, gold. The one next to it goes gold, copper, white, graphite, and I'm just alternating the colours to get a really fun composition. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was such a learning experience, and I'm gonna definitely play around with more kind of really big sized blobs because I loved it. Another tip for you guys, if you can see up at the top of the frame there, I'm storing these bottles. This time around, they were just upside down in plastic cups. It really does help just eliminate some of the bubblage. Storing the bottles upside down means that the bubbles will rise hopefully to the top of the bottle, not where you're squeezing the paints out, but you will always get bubbles because you're squeezing paint out of a tube. So please don't worry if you get bubbles, you can just torch them, or you can take a popsicle stick and pop them too, but torching them is by far the easiest way of getting rid of these bubbles. Just be careful, just like with any acrylics, you know, you don't want to stay in one spot too soon, and you don't want that flame to touch, if you can help it, the paint. And no, this doesn't interact with the resin base coat at all, because I'm not leaving the torch in any one spot for too long, nothing is getting overheated. Now I wanted to change the camera angle up so that you got an idea of the height of these blobs. Now this is only the 5th layer, so there's still a few more layers to go. But as you can see, I'm getting a good almost like an inch off the tile here with these blobs. This is because this paint recipe is my 50% Mod Podge, 25% acrylic, 25% gloss varnish, and you get that rise. You know, one of the beauties of the blobs is the height that you can kind of get as you're blobbing along. If the paint consistency is too thin, you'll still be able to layer the colours on top of each other, but they'll just look like flat crepes, like little tiny little flat pancakes. Ideally, you don't want that. You want to get some height in these blobs too. So the next few layers, you'll see me pour them at this angle, so hopefully you can get an idea of just that. Again, there in the background you can see me standing these tubes, these squeeze bottles of paint upside down, and as you get smaller and smaller with these blobs, you do get fewer and fewer bubbles. I love the height of these, they're so cool. It was so much fun doing them. This is layer 7, and if you stick around just a few more minutes longer, you'll see these up on the wall. And I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have questions about the blobs or the recipes, know you can always throw something in the comments section, and I'll always answer everything. Or we'll see you at the Fluid Art Experience, April the 27th to the 29th, and I'm teaching a blob class with the show pony. So consider coming seeing us in Seattle if you want to learn this one face to face. But yeah, as for always, super fun. Really enjoyed these, and I hope you enjoyed watching this one with me. So now it's time to spank the Patreons.
It is time to spank the Patreons.
And who are the Patreons? Well, they're a really special bunch of people.
Yes.
Who've decided to come and follow us outside of the YouTube channel. It's a completely separate account, and people can opt into different tiers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And those different tiers allow people different rewards. So, for example, at one level, there's behind the scenes pictures and videos and sneak peeks of what we do in the studio. And then at another level, there is a once a month live stream exclusively just for those gold level Patreons. And then at another level, they also get a once a month live tutorial.
Yes.
Where we might take an individual technique and walk through it step by step by step by step. So we really appreciate these guys because they're coming to us and supporting us outside of the channel. It means an awful lot to us.
It does mean a lot to us.
So we have some thank yous. And at that gold level, we have Trisha West, we have Terry Leshner, we have Tammy Housebrook, we have Stephanie Hancock, we've got Sharon Luffy, the wonderful Pocket Rocket Patsy Petrelli. We've got Nate Bright Art. We've got Mamadoulis. We have Linda Serieni. We've got Kelly Stowell of Feral Arts.
Yeah.
We've got Jane Klein and Gloria Salaki. We have Gillian Kennedy of Bell's Creations. We have Elizabeth Giuliano. We have Kathy J. And we have Amy, aka Crafty Chicken Mom.
Yes.
And
then on our platinum level, we have Susan Shepperson, Susan Chigori, Judith Jones Art, we have Janice Pittman, and we have Elaine Burton.
Oh my gosh, we all know and love and's been with us pretty much from day one.
Yes.
As most of you have. So thank you so very much for being with us.
Yes.
We really genuinely do appreciate you and your support. It allows us the opportunity to keep painting and keep doing fun stuff for you guys. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much.
And to everyone else that's down here below, we honestly can't thank you enough. It really does mean the world to us. So thanks guys.